Welcome to the U.Discover Summer Scholars Program information session. Today I will be providing a program overview and discussing how to develop an effective U.Discover proposal. My name is Sarah Lowmaster. I am the U.Discover Subcommittee Chair from the Council for Undergraduate Research and Creative Scholarship at the University of South Dakota, and I will go over the information covered today. Another person that you should know for the program who runs and manages the program is Kim Albrecht, who's the Director of Undergraduate Research in the Gallagher Center on University of South Dakota's main campus. If you have any questions about the program, you can contact Kim through the engage@usd.edu email address. So just for an overview of today's presentation, I will cover and discuss an overview of what the U.Discover Summer Scholars Program is and the different types of positions that are offered. I will then discuss how to develop a U.Discover project. And then more specifically about the U.Discover application, I will review how to write your project proposal, any additional requirements in the application process, and where you can find examples. Finally, I'll talk a little bit about how the applications are evaluated and reviewed and what to expect in that process. So just for a little bit of information or overview about the Summer Scholars Program, so you might have some information already. So under the guidance of faculty mentors, undergraduate students will engage in a research project or creative scholarship during the summer. The U.Discover program lasts 10 weeks. And the funding awards, which are sent to the students, are approximately $5,000. And there's a small stipend available for mentors, so anyone who mentors an undergraduate in this research. The Summer Scholars Program is open to students from all disciplines. So while the program is incredibly and highly competitive, we encourage representation of students from a number of different areas, including and not limited to the natural sciences, the social sciences, the humanities, the fine arts, business, and other disciplines that are represented on campus. Now, there are two types of U.Discover positions that are available. The first one is what we would consider our standard position. This is an undergraduate research scholar, and so it's open to any proposal or project or student who is conducting research or creative scholarship from any of the disciplines on campus. We also have a special second type of position, which is what we call the library archive scholar. Now, these scholars and these positions are based on the type of proposal that is presented by the students. So in order to be considered for the library archive scholar position, a student must draw upon any of the collections that are available in the archives and special collections, the South Dakota Oral History Center, or the Mahoney Music Collection through the library systems. If you would like additional information about projects that have been completed or about this particular position, you can find that information on the portal under the Gallagher Center information on myusd.edu. So in terms of thinking about the two types of positions, everyone has to develop a proposal. And whenever we think about developing that proposal and that project, in terms of thinking about where you are and where you're moving, we have to start with how do we identify what you want to do your project on? So if you're considering applying for U.Discover, the first thing that you should do is identify both an area of interest as well as a faculty mentor. Now, depending on your discipline, some people may already be conducting research with someone or working with a faculty mentor closely. And so you have something in mind or an area of interest. And so then you need to work more on the topic and the specific topic for your proposal. However, some students, if you are not working with someone and you have an area of interest, what you would want to do is make sure that you're clear on that area and then approach a faculty member and ask them if they would be willing to support your application. Now, once you identify your area of interest in your faculty mentor, what you're going to do is to develop a topic for your proposal. So you might start with a broad idea, and what you want to do is refine that to a more specific topic that can be completed for the U.Discover project. After you develop that topic, then you'll meet with the mentor further, and so you and the mentor will work together to further refine that topic. So they can provide guidance in this process, and I think it's very beneficial for you to receive their feedback and listen to their feedback, especially as they will be mentoring you throughout the process. And then once you begin to refine the topic and you've done some of the research, you can actually begin the U.Discover application process itself. So There's a lot of work to do before you start the application itself, so make sure you get started as early as possible. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of work that you have to do ahead of time. And so in terms of developing that research or creative scholarship project, the first place that we typically start is with an idea. And this might come from just plain curiosity about a topic. It might come from your existing knowledge or experiences. At the idea phase, students likely don't have any background work completed, and you might not be sure where to find the information that you need. And I would suggest at this stage of that process that you start to become more curious, look into some things on your own, and then as you reach out to the faculty mentor, they can help you to develop a more solid, what we would call, plan. And with that planning phase, essentially what you'd want to do is have identified relevant literature or scholarship that's necessary for the topic that you have chosen. You also want to decide upon specific methods or creative techniques that you would use to elaborate for the project you would complete related to your topic. And you also, in that planning phase, need to get approval from your mentor and any other sources that you need approval from. So for example, if you're conducting research and you need approval from the Institutional Review Board for human subjects, you would need to make sure you obtain that as part of your plan. Or if you need access to certain populations, you would need to make sure that you have obtained the necessary guarantees or committals from everyone who's involved in that process as well. So again, the process here is going from an idea to a plan phase. And once you develop that plan, you can start the application process. Now, the U.Discover application has a number of different components. I will go through several of these. Other ones and other aspects are covered in Kim Albrecht's video, which is appended to this one as well for your review. Now, the first part of the application process, so there's a general link to the U.Discover application, and within the application, it's going to ask you a number of questions about background and sort of identifying information, and that can be found in the USD portal under the Gallagher Center and then U.Discover Summer Scholars Program. Now, the major component of your application is this 2-page project proposal, which is what we have discussed a little bit about so far in terms of identifying an idea and the project you actually want to complete during the 10 weeks over the summer. And that is what I will focus on mainly. There are other components which we'll cover shortly for the application process, but let's talk more about the 2-page project proposal. So when you write your project proposal, there are a few basics that you need to consider. These are questions that are outlined in the application where they ask you to go through these. So every proposal, regardless of whether it's for a research project or a creative scholarship activity, should address these questions. The first one is, what is the purpose or the rationale of your project? So why are you doing what you're doing? Why should it be done? Or is there a question that you're hoping to answer? The second piece that you need to outline is what methods or creative techniques will you be using in your process. And one thing to make clear here, this is how you're going to go about this. So potentially, what exactly are you going to do during the summer or for your project? And remember that these methods and techniques should align with the research question if it's a research project, or it should align with the rationale if it is a creative scholarship project. So what types of techniques, whether that be you're doing an experiment if it's research related, or if it is more creative, what types of skills will you learn, or what types of activities will you be engaging in? And one of the key pieces as you're writing this section is to think about how each of these methods or techniques will lead to whatever your desired outcome is. So if you have a specific purpose, and with this purpose, this is what you hope to achieve, how will these methods help you get to that outcome or to that goal? The third question you have to consider in your proposal is, how is your project original and or significant? So we want everyone's work that they're doing to be fresh, to add new knowledge to the field. And so as you're thinking about ideas and working with your mentor, you should be identifying gaps or limitations in our current understanding, whether that be in research or in creative areas. So are there things that are missing that certain groups or communities would benefit from? Or are there certain questions that need to be answered to further the science? And you need to explain what is original or what is significant about your project. So how does this help develop your field or society in general? And the last question you should address in your proposal is whether you have other financial support for the project. So for example, you will be funded, as I mentioned, there's a funding amount that comes along with this, or a stipend that goes along with this U.Discover position. However, but do you have other sources of funding? So are you funded by a mentor's grant or some other process? Now, I mentioned and went over the different types of questions that you're going to be asked to answer and the things to consider as you're doing that. Just a few tips for successful proposals. So a number of us who serve on this committee also review the proposals. And so whenever we see successful proposals, there are certain characteristics that stand out to us. The first one is that everyone should abide by the 2-page limit. So it's important to be concise with your writing and not go over the limit. It is there for a reason. So it's one, allow us to learn more about your project. It doesn't have to be a complete paper, but it's to allow you to present your information in a succinct way. The other piece that's important for a successful proposal is that you write it for a general audience. So the people reviewing your proposal will not be a specialist within your field, or they're likely not to be a specialist within your field. So you need to keep in mind as you're writing that discussing really nuanced details that are specific to your discipline may not translate well or may not be understood by others outside of your discipline. So it's important to think about this. If you think about it, think about writing for maybe your educated parent or grandparent who has some information about the field but doesn't have a lot of information. So how can you explain that information to them? One important piece here that we sometimes see is that students will copy and paste information from either a mentor's grant application or paper. Do not do this. This is very apparent when students do this, and it is not reviewed favorably whenever that occurs. So make sure that you write this in your own words and not use others' words to do this project. So it should be your own original work. The third tip for a successful proposal is to provide complete information. So what I mean by this is we outline a number of questions that you should address in the proposal. Make sure you answer every single one. So if you skip over one of those, that's one section that we won't have to review, and that will result in a lower score automatically. So just make sure that you have addressed each question as it's laid out, and make sure that all the information, again, fits within those 2 pages. The fourth criteria I think is really important and is something that has shifted a little bit. So the idea here is that any project that you propose should be feasible within the U.Discover summer timeframe. So you have 10 weeks over the summer that you'll be a U.Discover Summer Scholar, and your project should try to fit within that timeframe. Now, it's important to know, and we understand that some projects may take longer because of the nature of the project. So if you're recruiting human subjects, that might take a little bit longer. Or if you're working with a specific population, there might be some differences there. But one thing that we ask is if your project, or you expect your project to take longer than that 10 weeks, what you should do in the proposal is really clearly explain what you will accomplish in those 10 weeks. So you need to be able to fill up your time and be able to have at least some sort of hit some intermediary milestone in that process. For example, in a research area or domain, that might be collecting pilot data to inform the next step of your project. Or it might be if you're doing a series of studies or a series of activities that you complete one of those, and maybe that you have to then present it for a larger group at a later time. And so making sure that you're clear, this is what's going to be and can be covered in that 10-week time frame. The last piece or tip for a successful proposal is to really clearly communicate your qualifications. So this is one criteria that we evaluate the proposals on, which is students are asked in one of the questions in the application to communicate their different experiences that they've had. This might be work experiences that relate to the particular project. It might be research experiences, it might be applied experiences, maybe you work and you help out with a faculty mentor on some creative area, maybe you're helping to develop sculptures or things like that. And so making sure that you communicate what experiences you have had and any training that you've had that can help you to complete this project. And so I encourage you to think about this. Even if you haven't had previous experience, you can still apply, but you should really communicate what types of training you have or maybe that you're acquiring. They're going to help you to be successful in this project. Now coming back, so after you complete the proposal, so each of those components will be evaluated and included in that. The next part of the application component is you need a letter of recommendation from your faculty mentor. So the person who's providing guidance on the project needs to write a letter and submit that with your application. And you also have to work with your mentor or mentee, and you as the mentee have to work with your mentor to develop this agreement. And so this mentor-mentee agreement essentially goes over the plan for the project and specific goals and timelines for achieving those goals. And so that's important that you work with them to develop that and to submit that information. And then the last piece of the application is the unofficial transcript. So I just want to say that there are a number of examples of applications that have been successful in a number of areas on the portal under the Gallagher Center in the U.Discover Summer Scholars Program. And I will note that most of those relate to natural sciences or social sciences or the health sciences. And so again, more research-based. However, I still want to encourage and let you all know that we do want applications from the humanities and the fine arts. And there have been successful proposals of those in the past. We just do not have examples presented. So I will add some additional examples of those to the website so that those are available for everyone to look at. Now, once you complete the application process, applications are due February 15th. This is, again, in the presentation by Kim Albrecht, where she'll discuss different deadlines. I just want to discuss a little about the evaluation and the review process. It's essentially a two-stage process. In the first stage, this is the written application. So everyone who applies for U.Discover submits this written application by February 15th. And what happens at that point is that each application is reviewed and scored by faculty, a number of faculty across the campus, for certain criteria. So one thing that we look at is if the project is significant or original according to your discipline standards. We also look at the quality of the written proposal. So how clearly written it is it organized? Do you consider the audience that it's a general audience and you're not writing to someone specific to your field? And as well as the citation of either literature or research that has been done in the past. So this is a significant part of that review process. We also review and evaluate whether the project is likely to lead to significant results. And finally, we evaluate your qualifications. So as I mentioned, this is part of the application process. We consider this to be an important piece. So we evaluate how qualified you are to carry out the project. And here we look at things like your grades from your transcript, your experiences that you've had, and then we also look at the faculty support letter. And so they can communicate, this is how much they have worked with you and what you've done with them, or if you haven't, how likely they believe the project is to get completed. And so that process and that whole packet is evaluated by a number of reviewers. And after that review process happens of the written application, we will then invite a smaller set of students or applicants in to complete the interview process. And the interview process essentially is for the reviewers to ask more detailed questions about the particular projects. And this will be done with the students over Zoom, and it's one student, and there's usually 4 to 5 faculty members. And at that point, after the interview process, students are evaluated in the interview, and then the interview and the written application scores are combined to determine who will be awarded a U.Discover Summer Scholar position. So the whole process will take place throughout the spring semester, ultimately having decisions made about the scholars by the end of March. Again, Kim Albrecht will have the specific deadlines on her and timelines for this on her video, so please stay tuned and watch that. But again, this whole process happens, students are notified, and then the summer project begins at the end of May, so students will have the opportunity to participate. So If you have any questions, one thing I highly recommend is watching Kim Albrecht's presentation for the general overview of the U.Discover program, because it will provide more information about specific deadlines and timeframes for everything and when you can expect to be notified. If you have additional questions or need assistance with the application, again, please contact engage@usd.edu. And I just want to wish everyone good luck in this process, and we really want everyone to succeed and to have a wide range of students involved in this. So please reach out if you have questions, and thank you for attending to the presentation.